Everyone at the academy feared the bullies, until the day a human arrived, picked up the girl they tormented, and made the whole galaxy realize what true strength looks like. I have seen a lot of terrible things in my 17 cycles at the Galactic Youth Academy. I have watched Krillian students dissolve furniture with their acidic secretions for laughs. I have seen Tharnik's kids use their telepathy to cheat on every single exam. I have even witnessed a Gorvian eat an entire hoverball, goals and all, just because someone dared him to. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the systematic cruelty I witnessed every single morning in the East Corridor. Her name was Kes Telvorn to be precise. She was Velen, which meant she had the standard 4 arms, pale blue skin that shimmered slightly under station lighting, and those characteristic large dark eyes that seemed to absorb everything around them. Beautiful species, really. Gentle, thoughtful, artistic. The kind of people who wrote poetry about quantum mechanics and somehow made it not sound completely ridiculous. But here is the thing about Kes that made her different, that made her a target. Her lower appendages, what you might call legs if you are being generous, they did not work, had not worked since birth according to the medical files I definitely was not supposed to have access to. Some genetic quirk, rare among Velens, left her dependent on a mobility device. Not one of those fancy anti-grav hover chairs that the wealthy families could afford, mind you. No. Kes rolled around in an actual wheeled chair, metal frame, rubber wheels, the kind of ancient technology that most species had not used in 300 cycles. You know why? Because her family could not afford better. Because Velen's social services had a waiting list longer than a Saxorian's genealogy. Because life is not fair, even in an enlightened multi-species civilization that loves to pat itself on the back for being so progressive. Every morning, like clockwork, like some twisted ritual that the universe had ordained, 3 students would make it their personal mission to remind Kes exactly where she stood in the social hierarchy. Their names were Drevik, Thorn, and Quinn. And honestly, I wish I could tell you they were complicated individuals with tragic backstories that explained their behavior. But no, they were just jerks. Plain and simple, the kind of jerks who peaked in secondary education and would spend the rest of their lives wondering why nobody liked them. Drevik was Krillian, big surprise there, all exoskeleton and attitude, with mandibles that clicked when he laughed, which he did often and loudly, built like he could tear through a steel door, which to be fair he probably could. He was the muscle, the enforcer, the one who did the actual dirty work. Thorn was Zentari. One of those tall, willowy species that moved like they were perpetually underwater. 4 eyes, 2 on each side of his elongated head, which meant he could see you judging him from any angle. He was the brains, if you could call them that. The planet, the one who always made sure they operated just within the technical boundaries of Academy regulations. And Quinn, oh Quinn, a Hexorian, which meant she had that opalescent skin that changed colors with her mood, usually settling somewhere between smug purple and cruel crimson. She was the mouth, the one who delivered the verbal barbs while the others did the physical work, the one who could make you feel small with just a carefully placed word or a well-timed laugh. Their routine never varied. 8th hour, morning break, East Corridor near the Kinetic Sciences lab. Kes would be rolling to her next class, usually alone because, let us be honest, most students had learned that associating with her meant painting a target on your own back. The trio would intercept her. Drevik would grab the chair from behind. Thorn would block her path forward, and Quinn would lean in close, all false sweetness and poison. "Oh, Kes," she would say, her skin flashing that particularly nasty shade of orange that meant she was enjoying herself. "Did you really think you could make it to class today? How adorable." Then they would take it. Just lift the chair, with Kes still in it sometimes, carry it down the corridor and hide it, sometimes in a storage closet, sometimes in the waste reclamation area. Once, memorably, they managed to get it onto the roof of the administrative building. How they did that I still have no idea, and honestly I am a little impressed, despite myself. Kes would be left there, on the floor, her forearms useless for locomotion in the way they were designed. She could drag herself, technically, could pull her body along the corridor like some kind of tragic performance art. But the academy was huge. The distances between classes were measured in hundreds of meters, and there was pride to consider. Whatever dignity she had left. So usually she just sat there, waited. Sometimes a sympathetic teacher would find her and call for assistance. Sometimes the automated security drones would flag her as an obstruction and summon help. Sometimes she would just miss class entirely. Marked absent, another black mark on her academic record that she absolutely did not need. The faculty knew. Of course they knew. But proving it was another matter entirely. Thorne made sure of that. The trio always had alibis. Always had excuses. The chair was never damaged, technically. Kes was never physically harmed, technically. It was just pranks. Just kids being kids. Just the rough and tumble of multi-species adolescent social dynamics. I watched this happen for weeks. Watched from the sidelines like everyone else, telling myself it was not my business. That getting involved would just make me a target too. That surely someone with more authority or courage would step in. All the usual excuses that people make when they witness injustice and choose comfort over action. The social hierarchy at Galactic Youth Academy was crystal clear. Humans, the newest addition to the galactic community, were at the bottom. Primitive deathworlders who had barely figured out faster than light travel. Then came the poor, the disabled, the different. Kes occupied a special place in that bottom tier, intersecting multiple categories of undesirable, and at the top, species like the Krillians, the Zentari, the Haxorians, old money, old civilizations, old prejudices wrapped in new diplomatic language. Nobody challenged it. Nobody dared. Until Drexar Morn-Chen arrived. Drexar Morn-Chen walked into Galactic Youth Academy on a Tuesday, which should tell you everything you need to know about how little ceremony the administration afforded human students. No welcoming committee. No orientation assembly. Just here is your schedule. Here is your locker code. Try not to die in the low-gravity gymnasium. He was average height for a human, which made him short by galactic standards. Maybe 1.6 meters, give or take. Black hair that stuck up in about 7 different directions like he had lost a fight with a solar wind. Dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything they landed on. Wore the standard academy uniform but somehow made it look rumpled within minutes, like his body was actively rebelling against formal clothing. The whispers started immediately, of course. Humans had only joined the galactic community 6 cycles ago, and the prejudice was still fresh, still socially acceptable in that way that bigotry always is when it is new enough to not have regulations against it yet. Deathworlder, someone muttered as Drexar Morn passed. I heard their planet has weather that can kill you, a Pelkaran student whispered, her gills fluttering nervously. They eat other animals, Quinn announced loudly to her nearby cluster of admirers, her skin flashing disgusted green. Like dead animals, cooked flesh. Can you imagine? Their gravity is twice standard, Thorne added, his 4 eyes tracking Drexar Morn with scientific curiosity, like he was observing a particularly interesting bacterial culture. Their whole evolution is based on surviving a world that actively tries to murder them. Primitives, Dravik clicked, his mandibles spreading in what passed for a Krillian sneer. Barely got warp drive working and they think they belong here with civilized species. Drexar Morn heard all of it. I could tell by the slight tightening around his eyes, the way his jaw set just a fraction harder. But he did not respond, just kept walking, kept scanning room numbers, kept existing in a space that had already decided he did not belong. That first week he was invisible. The kind of invisible that comes from being deliberately overlooked. Teachers called on him last, if at all. Students gave him wide berth in the corridors. The cafeteria had an entire section that mysteriously emptied whenever he sat down. I felt bad for him, honestly, but not bad enough to do anything about it, because I was comfortable in my middle-tier status and saw no reason to jeopardize it for some human I did not know. Then came that Thursday. 8th hour. Morning break. East Corridor. Drexar Morn was heading to kinetic sciences, same as Kes, taking the long route because he was still learning the academy layout. He rounded the corner just as Dravik lifted Kes's wheelchair, with her still in it, her forearms gripping the armrests, her face carefully blank in that way that people get when they are trying desperately not to show how humiliated they feel. Please, Kes said quietly, her voice barely carrying. I have an exam this period. Oh, an exam, Quinn exclaimed, her skin flashing mocking yellow. Well, why did you not say so? That changes everything. Except, no, wait, it does not. Thorne was already moving down the corridor with the chair, Dravik following, leaving Kes on the floor like discarded furniture. Drexar Morn stopped. Just completely stopped moving. Stood there for maybe 5 seconds, watching, processing that analytical look in his eyes going absolutely cold. Then he walked straight up to Kes. Hi, he said, his voice carrying that particular human accent that always sounded slightly aggressive to galactic ears, all hard consonants and blunt efficiency. I am Drexar Morn. You need to get to class, yeah? Kes looked up at him, confusion clear on her face. Yes, but my chair. Which class? Kinetic Sciences, room 417. But Drexar Morn did not let her finish, just bent down, slid one arm under her knees, another behind her back, and lifted her. Lifted her like she weighed absolutely nothing. Like he was picking up a backpack, not a fully grown Velen student. The corridor went silent. Like actually silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Footsteps stopped. I am pretty sure someone dropped their datapad and nobody even noticed the sound it made hitting the floor. Kes made a startled sound, all four of her arms instinctively wrapping around Drexar Morn's neck and shoulders. Which way? Drexar Morn asked, completely unbothered by the staring, by the weight, by the sheer social suicide he was currently committing. Left, then second right. Kes whispered, her eyes wide, her blue skin flushing darker with what might have been embarrassment or shock or maybe both. And Drexar Morn just walked, carried her down the corridor, around the corner past gaping students and a teacher whose mouth was literally hanging open. His breathing was not even labor. That death world gravity, that evolutionary adaptation to a planet that pulled twice as hard as standard, meant carrying Kes was about as challenging as carrying a bag of groceries. Dravik, Thorn, and Quinn stood frozen, the wheelchair still in Dravik's claws, watching this human completely ignore their entire social hierarchy. What? Quinn finally managed, her skin cycling through confused colors. What is he doing? Nobody had an answer. Drexar Morn reached room 417, carefully set Kes down in a chair at the front of the classroom, nodded once and said, "See you after class. I will get your chair back." Then he left. Just left. Walked out like he had not just completely shattered every social convention the academy had. Kes sat there, her forearms still trembling slightly, staring at the door where Drexar Morn had disappeared. "Who?" she whispered to nobody in particular. "Who was that?" "I was in that classroom. I saw her face, and I realized in that moment that something fundamental had just shifted. The humans had arrived, and they did not care about our hierarchies." The next morning, Drexar Morn was waiting in the east corridor at 8th hour, just standing there, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, like he had all the time in the universe. Kes rolled up, saw him, and stopped. Her dark eyes went wide, and her skin flushed that darker blue that meant she was feeling something intense. Surprise, probably, maybe hope, which honestly might have been worse. "You came back," she said, and there was this fragile quality to her voice that made my chest hurt. "Said I would," Drexar Morn replied, shrugging like it was the most natural thing in the galaxy. "You read it?" Dravik, Thorn, and Quinn appeared right on schedule, and the look on their faces when they saw Drexar Morn was absolutely priceless. Dravik's mandibles clicked with agitation. Thorn's four eyes narrowed to slits. Quinn's skin went straight to angry red. "Move aside, human," Dravik growled, reaching for the wheelchair. Drexar Morn stepped between them, did not say anything, just stood there, positioned himself as a physical barrier, and waited. "This does not concern you, Death Worlder," Thorn said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Go back to your primitive planet." "Nah," Drexar Morn said, and I swear there was almost a smile on his face. "I am good here." They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Dravik made a calculation, decided fighting a human in front of witnesses was not worth the trouble, and stepped back. "Freak lover," Quinn spat at Drexar Morn as they left. Her skin was flashing patterns I had never seen before, probably inventing new colors just to express her disgust. Drexar Morn ignored her completely, bent down, lifted Kes again and started walking. This became the routine, every single day. 8th hour, East Corridor. Drexar Morn would carry Kes to Kinetic Sciences, then after third meal he would carry her to Quantum Literature, then again to Biological Systems. Every class they shared, which turned out to be 4 out of 7 periods. The mockery was relentless. Students would make exaggerated groaning sounds when Drexar Morn passed, pretending to strain under invisible weight. Someone started a betting pool on how long until he gave up. The human contingent at the academy, all 12 of them, told Drexar Morn he was making them all look bad, that he was confirming every stereotype about humans being stupid and overly emotional. Drexar Morn did not care, or if he did, he never showed it. I started following them, observing, because honestly this was the most interesting thing happening at the academy in cycles. That is how I learned about Kes's situation. Her family worked in waste reclamation. Both parents, double shifts, 3 younger siblings, all healthy, all able-bodied. The hover chair she needed cost 17,000 credits. Her family made maybe 22,000 a year. Total medical coverage only paid for the basic wheeled model, the one she had. The waiting list for subsidized upgraded equipment was 7 cycles long. 7 cycles. She would have graduated and moved on before her name even came up. Why do they target you specifically? Drexar Morn asked one day, carrying her up a ramp that most students just hovered over. I mean beyond the obvious. Kess was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because I should not be here. This academy is for families who can afford it, for species with status. Velins are granted charity spots sometimes, and I got one because my test scores were high, but I do not belong. Not really, and they like to remind me. That is garbage, Drexar Morn said flatly. It is reality. It is garbage reality then. That made Kess laugh, this surprised, bubbling sound that I had never heard from her before. That does not make sense. Sure it does. Reality can be garbage. Happens all the time on Earth. We have this saying, you know, about having someone's back, having their back, like possessing their posterior region. Drexar Morn actually laughed at that. No, it means supporting them, standing with them, making sure they are not alone when things get hard. You watch their back, they watch yours. Trust thing. We have no such saying in Vela. Maybe you should start one. Their friendship grew like something organic, something natural that nobody had planned but everyone could see. Drexar Morn started sitting with Kess at third meal. She helped him with quantum literature homework, because apparently humans really struggled with non-linear narrative structures. He taught her human card games badly, using a deck he had brought from Earth. Other students watched with fascination and horror, like witnessing a ship crash in slow motion. Indravik, Thorin, and Quinn. They watched with something much darker, something that looked like fury mixed with humiliation. I saw them meeting in the alcove near the environmental systems lab, saw Thorin's 4 eyes gleaming with calculation, saw Quinn's skin cycling through aggressive patterns, saw Dravik cracking his knuckles or whatever the Krillian equivalent was. They were planning something bad. I should have warned Drexar Morn, should have said something, but I told myself it was not my business, that he was tough enough to handle himself, that surely the Academy security would step in if things went too far. All the usual lies people tell themselves when they are too scared to be brave. 2 days later, Kess's wheelchair disappeared. Not hidden this time. Destroyed. They found the wheelchair in the waste compactor, or what was left of it anyway. The frame was twisted beyond recognition, wheels torn off, the padding shredded. Whoever did it had spent time on it, made sure it was absolutely completely unsalvageable. Kess just stared at the wreckage, did not cry, did not scream, just stared, her forearms hanging limp at her sides, and somehow that was worse than any emotional outburst could have been. Drexar Morn stared too, but his expression was different. His jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping, his hands curled into fists, his eyes went flat and cold in a way that made my survival instincts scream warnings. Who? He said quietly. Does it matter? Kess whispered. I cannot prove anything. I never can, and even if I could, my family cannot afford a replacement. I will have to withdraw from the academy, go back home. It is over. Who? Drexar Morn repeated, and this time it was not a question. I knew where they would be. Everyone knew. Dravik, Thorn, and Quinn always celebrated their victories in the observation deck after final period, watching ships come and go, congratulating themselves on their cleverness. Drexar Morn knew too. He left Kess with a sympathetic teacher and headed straight there. I followed. Of course I followed. I was not about to miss this. The observation deck was nearly empty, just the 3 of them lounging near the viewport. Quinn saw Drexar Morn first, her skin flashing triumphant orange. Oh look, she announced, the pet human. Missing something? Or someone? Drexar Morn walked straight up to them. No hesitation. No fear. Just purpose. You destroyed her chair, he said. Prove it, Thorn replied, his 4 eyes gleaming with smug satisfaction. Prove anything. Go ahead. We will wait. Do not need to prove it, Drexar Morn said. Then he punched Dravik in the face. Now here's what you need to understand about Krillians. They have exoskeletons, armor plating that can withstand impacts that would pulverize most species. They are strong, fast, and built for combat. Dravik outweighed Drexar Morn by at least 40 kilograms and had natural weapons that could shred metal. Drexar Morn's fist hit Dravik's mandible with a sound like a hammer on stone. Dravik's head snapped back. He actually staggered and made a sound of pure shocked pain. Human knuckles, turns out, are evolution's answer to the question, what if we made brass knuckles out of bone and just attached them to people? Thorn moved next, those long Zentari limbs reaching to restrain Drexar Morn. He got a grip on Drexar Morn's shoulder, started to squeeze with strength that should have driven Drexar Morn to his knees. Drexar Morn headbutted him, just reared back and slammed his forehead into Thorn's face with zero hesitation. Thorn's nose, or what passed for a nose, shattered. He released Drexar Morn, stumbling backward, all four eyes watering. Quinn was screaming for security, her skin cycling through panic colors, but she was also backing into a corner because apparently her bravery only functioned when she had backup. Dravik recovered, enraged now and charged. He was fast, trained in Krillian combat forms, and he came at Drexar Morn with those razor-sharp claws extended, aiming for vital areas. Drexar Morn did not dodge, did not even try. He stepped into the attack, taking a slash across his forearm that opened his skin in 3 parallel lines. Blood welled up, bright red, and Dravik smiled because he thought he had won. Except Drexar Morn did not stop, did not even slow down. His face registered the pain, sure, but his body just kept moving like the injury was an inconvenience rather than a threat. He grabbed Dravik's arm, twisted it with leverage that should not have worked against an exoskeleton, and slammed the Krillian into the deck plating. The sound was spectacular. Death World, Drexar Morn said through gritted teeth, blood dripping from his arm, means we evolved to take damage, means our pain tolerance is higher than your entire species' threshold, means when you hurt us we do not stop, we just get angry. Thorn tried again, attempted some kind of Zentari nerve strike that would have paralyzed most species. His fingers found the pressure points on Drexar Morn's neck. Drexar Morn grabbed those fingers and bent them backward until something cracked. Thorn shrieked, a sound that probably shattered glass somewhere in the galaxy. Then Drexar Morn threw him across the observation deck, where he crashed into a bench and stayed down. Dravik was getting up, refusing to quit because Krillian pride apparently exceeded Krillian common sense. He rushed Drexar Morn again. Drexar Morn met him halfway, ducked under those slashing claws, and delivered an uppercut that lifted Dravik's entire body off the ground. The Krillian landed in a heap and did not get up again. The whole fight lasted maybe 90 seconds. Security arrived to find Drexar Morn standing in the center of the observation deck, bleeding but upright, surrounded by 3 students who were very much not. Quinn was pressed against the viewport, her skin stuck on terrified white, screaming about the crazy human who attacked them without provocation. Except, there were cameras. There were always cameras. And the footage showed exactly who threw the first punch, but also showed exactly why, showed them bragging about the wheelchair, showed them laughing about Kess. All 3 were expelled within the hour. Turns out, destruction of adaptive equipment and targeted harassment of disabled students was finally enough to overcome even the best family connections. Drexar Morn got detention for fighting. 3 weeks. Did not even complain. He went straight to medical, got his arm sealed up, and then went to find Kess. "It is handled," he said simply. Kess looked at the bandage on his arm, at the bruises forming on his knuckles, and something in her expression shifted. "You fought them, for me. Had my back, remember?" Drexar Morn said. "That goes both ways." The next morning, Drexar Morn showed up in the East Corridor with all 12 human students from the academy. Every single one. They were carrying a hoverchair, brand new, top-of-the-line model with adaptive controls and comfort padding that probably cost more than my family's transport pod. Kess stared at it like it was a hallucination. "We took up a collection," Drexar Morn said, almost embarrassed. "Humans, I mean. We have this thing called crowdfunding back home. Everyone chips in a little, adds up to a lot. Contacted some human merchants in the sector, explained the situation, and they cut us a deal. This model usually runs 23,000 credits. We got it for 9,000, Kess whispered. Her 4 arms were trembling. "That is still, I cannot possibly, my family could never repay. Not alone." Another human student interrupted. A girl named Yuki Tanaka with short purple hair. "A gift. No strings. You need it, we got it." "Duh. But why?" Kess's voice cracked. "You do not even know me. Most of you have never spoken to me." A human boy named Deshaun Williams, tall and broad-shouldered, shrugged. "Drexar Morn told us what happened, what they did, where we come from. You do not let that stand. You do not let people suffer alone when you can do something about it. Also, Yuki added with a grin. Drexar Morn said you are really good at quantum literature and we are all failing that class, so maybe you could tutor us. If you want. Not required though. Gift is still a gift. Cass transferred from her broken chair to the hover chair. It adjusted automatically to her body, supporting her in ways the old wheeled chair never could. She activated the controls and rose smoothly to standard height, her eyes now level with everyone else's instead of always looking up. She cried. All 4 arms came up to cover her face, and she just sobbed while 12 humans stood around awkwardly, trying to figure out if they should hug her or give her space, eventually settling on a weird combination of both. That afternoon, Cass's parents came to the academy. They had taken time off work, which meant losing wages they could not afford to lose, but they insisted on meeting Drexar Morn. Her father was a small Velen, worn down by labor and worry, but his eyes were fierce with gratitude. Her mother kept touching Drexar Morn's shoulder with all 4 hands, a Velen gesture of deepest respect, while crying and thanking him in 3 different languages. It was the right thing, he kept saying. Anyone would have done it, but that was the thing. Anyone could have. Nobody did. Not until a human showed up and decided that your social standing mattered less than basic decency. Cass's mother insisted on cooking them a traditional Velen meal, which meant Drexar Morn ended up at their small apartment in the station's lower residential ring, eating food he could barely identify while Cass's siblings climbed all over him asking questions about Earth. Is it true your sky is blue? The youngest asked, her eyes enormous. Yeah, Drexar Morn said, smiling. Blue during the day goes orange and pink at sunset, black at night with these little lights called stars. We learned that Earth has storms that can destroy cities, Cass's older brother said, suspicious and fascinated in equal measure. Hurricanes, yeah, tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions. It is kind of a mess, honestly. And you just live there, on purpose? Drexar Morn laughed. Where else would we go? It is home. I watched all of this from the outside, metaphorically speaking, but I saw the change ripple through the academy. Saw how other students started sitting with Cass at third meal, saw how the human contingent, previously isolated and ignored, suddenly had species from across the galaxy approaching them with curiosity instead of contempt, saw how a Palkoran student stood up to a bully targeting a younger kid and specifically said she learned it from watching the humans. Turns out, courage is contagious. The social hierarchy did not disappear overnight. Prejudice that old does not die easy, but cracks appeared in it. Fissures. Spaces where light could get in. 2 weeks after getting her new chair, Cass gave a presentation in our cultural exchange class. She talked about humans, about their concept of having someone's back, about how a species everyone dismissed as primitive deathworlders had taught her more about civilization than any of the so-called advanced species ever had. We thought strength meant physical power, she said, her voice carrying across the lecture hall. We thought advancement meant technology and comfort and safety. But humans showed me that real strength is using your power to protect people who cannot protect themselves. Real advancement is building a society where everyone belongs, not just the wealthy and able-bodied. Real civilization is measured by how you treat the most vulnerable among you. She looked directly at Drexar Morn sitting in the back row, trying to be invisible. Humans are not primitive, Cass continued. They are not deathworlders who got lucky with technology. They are people who survived a planet that tried to kill them every single day and decided that the lesson was not to become cruel or hard, but to become kind and protective. They learned that survival means taking care of each other, not just yourself. The room was silent. We called them barbarians, Cass finished quietly, but they are better than us. In the ways that actually matter, they are so much better than us. And maybe if we pay attention we can learn to be better too. Drexar Morn met her eyes across the room, nodded once. Small smile. That night, I updated my personal logs, trying to capture what I had witnessed, trying to explain how one human boy carrying one Velen girl to class had somehow shifted the entire moral axis of an academy that had operated on cruelty and hierarchy for generations. I am not sure I succeeded. Some things resist explanation, exist beyond words. But I know this. The galaxy invited humans to join us thinking we were doing them a favor, offering them access to our advanced civilization. Turns out, we had it backward. They were doing us the favor, teaching us what we had forgotten, or maybe never knew, reminding us that technology and longevity and comfort mean nothing if you have lost the basic ability to care about each other. Drexar Morn kept carrying Cass, even after she got the hover chair whenever the charge ran low or the corridors were too crowded. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. Because that is what having someone's back means. And honestly, that might be the most human thing of all.